Lee Summit is your destination for big city vibes and small town charm.
Head to the downtown Lee Summit Farmers Market, where local meets fresh. Then grab a cup of coffee and discover a variety of shops and boutiques just around the corner. Continue the fun in downtown Lee Summit at a retro arcade bar. Discover your new beer at one of our 6 locally owned breweries. Cool off with some handcrafted cocktails at happy hour. End the night with live music and good company. Lee Summit, Missouri.
Hello, Lee Summit. Here's your flash briefing for the week of June 10th. City Council will meet for regular session Tuesday night at 6 in Council Chambers in City Hall. If you can't watch, quickly catch up on City Council meetings by subscribing to the Council Debrief newsletter, which breaks down 3 to 4 key agenda items. Subscribe at cityofls.net. Looking for a career change? The city is currently seeking an Assistant Director of Grants and Administration, an Office Coordinator, and a Finance Director. Do any of these positions interest you? The city offers rewarding career opportunities, a positive environment, and fantastic benefits. Apply or view these opportunities at lspeople.net. Have a love for nature, specifically the pollinators of our environment, such as butterflies and bees? Come on out to the Pollinator Festival this Saturday, June 15th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Longview Community Center. Join local nonprofit organizations committed to protecting and supporting pollinators and their ecosystems with family-friendly learning and engaging activities for all ages. And mark your calendars for Legacy Blast on July 3rd from 6 to 9 p.m. at Legacy Park. Gates open at 6 p.m. and the fireworks show begins at 9:30 p.m. Tune into 94.9 KCMO during the show for music choreographed to the fireworks. Concessions, food trucks, and more will be at the sports venue surrounding Legacy Park before the show. Be sure to arrive early to join in on the fun. Learn more at lsparks.net. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
I'm Assistant Chief Jim Eden.
And I'm Battalion Chief Ben Hicks.
And today we're at Lee Summit Fire Station 3. Fire Station 3 was part of the 2016 no tax increase general obligation bond for public safety initiatives. The station was built and occupied in August of 2020. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we've not been able to give tours or have an actual ribbon cutting. So we want to invite you in today to give you the opportunity to see what goes on within a Lee Summit Fire Department station.
Let's go take a tour. This is our admin side of the facility. We use this side mainly for offices. We have a lot of work during the day, whether it's training or doing reports or just generally taking care of the shift that we need to do. At this particular station, Station 3, we do have an assistant chief that works out of here. That person has their own office where they need to manage what's going on throughout the day with the shift and staffing, and as well as running calls out of here. The captain has their own office as well. What the captain does is at this specific station is in charge of both the fire truck that's here as well as the ambulance. And so with all those personnel responsibilities as well as running calls and reports, that's where they work out of. And generally for the rest of the crew, which is somewhere around 5 to 6 individuals, we have rooms to write reports, and we have additional training rooms and other rooms where people can work. Walking into our living area, I think it's important to recognize that we work 48-hour shifts. So in the evenings, after 5 o'clock, after work is done, we may have the opportunity to catch a game or something else as long as we're not running calls. And this gives us the opportunity to do that. When we go into our kitchen, I think this gives you a great reason to know why we go to the grocery store. When you see fire trucks at the grocery store, what we're doing. Well, so for 2 days working for 48 hours, we buy all our meals at the grocery store, and then we come in here and cook. Just like you guys do at home. So everybody has their own fridge on each shift as well as their own pantry, and then we cook those meals here. Going into the sleeping side of things, we've got a couple different things that are significant. We have our own laundry room, which again is important when we're here for 48 hours. The opportunity to wash and clean our clothes and bedding is very important for hygiene. And walking into where our beds are, we keep the kind of sleeping quarters over on one side of the building. It gives us both easy access out to where our fire apparatus are, as well as kind of keeping it a little bit quieter for those people that have been up all night running calls. We have 11 bedrooms here at this station. And the reason we built it with so many bedrooms is we want to give ourselves as a city the opportunity to expand. So if we need to put another apparatus here or numerous other people working at this station, that's already in place as far as infrastructure goes, and we don't need to go back and try to make it bigger or better. And that's really important for us, especially because the old station was so small. Back out on the apparatus floor, we have doors facilitated as many places as possible, so that way when we're sleeping at night and a call comes out, we can make way up to get out onto the truck if we need to and run a call. On the other side of the station, we kind of have other stuff that we may want to keep separated if we want to. Physical fitness is very important to us as firefighters. So in order to better ourselves and make sure we're as healthy as we can to do this job, we have our own gym facility here that we kind of go throughout the day when we can and get an opportunity to come in and work out. Our goal when we run calls, when we get back to the station after calls, our goal is to get ready to go back as soon as we can to run another call. So we have the opportunity or capability here to fill up our air tanks. You can see firefighters wear the big air tanks on their backs and they use those in a fire. We can come back and fill those up and make sure that we're ready to go again when we're wanting to go run another call. We have our own workshop here. We work on a lot of our tools and making sure that everything's clean and operational, and this gives us the capability to do that, again, to make sure that we have everything we need and we're as capable as we can be running calls throughout the city. Cancer prevention is very important in the fire service right now. Because of that, we have an extractor machine, and what this does is gives us the capability when we come back from a fire, we can put our bunker gear into this machine and get all that really nasty crud off of our gear. Again, kind of getting back to that cancer prevention mode, allowing us to be as clean as we possibly can for the next call. And finally is our bunker gear room. We each have our own individual locker. This gives us the opportunity to store our gear when we're not here working in between shifts, as well as keep a clean extra set on here in case we do run a fire and we need to clean our current gear. Typically, this is where your day starts off at the fire station. You come in and get your gear and put it on wherever you're working that day, and then you end the same way, bringing your stuff back to your locker to go home after working. This is Med 3. This ambulance just currently moved into the station from Station 7. Station 3, since we've had it built, has turned into one of our busiest stations in the city. Therefore, we wanted to provide the best care in the closest unit as we could. So we moved one of our ambulances up, and this became Med 3 for this particular instance. Out of this station, we also have Pumper 3. And that's a fire apparatus that they utilize to run the calls on this west end of the city. The last vehicle that you see is the chief's vehicle. We have 2 shift chiefs on shift every day, and they split the city. And this chief running out of this station typically covers the west and south area of the city, while our chief of Station 2 covers kind of that northeast section of our city, and they divided it up evenly.
Thank you for going on a tour with us today. If you have any other questions about the Lee Summit Fire Department, please go to our webpage at lsfire.net or follow us on Facebook at Lee Summit Fire Department.
Thanks for joining us on the tour.
I am Fred DeMoro. I represent District 4. I've been on the council for 4 years, just completed 4 years. They were good 4 years, a lot to do. And prior to that, I was on the Charter Review Commission. Prior to that, I spent 7 years on the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission is actually the advising body to the City Council for land issues and development issues. I've always been interested in the city, and I actually, a current council member is the one that gave me the urge to, or push to actually join the Planning Commission. And I just wanted to get more involved. I think he got tired of me asking questions all the time, so he said, let's put him to work. The one thing that we are passionate about, or I'm passionate about, is reducing the burden of property taxes on our residents, and by that we have to attract more commercial development to get those commercial property taxes, commercial sales taxes involved. And as a trickle-down theory, that actually reduces the burden on residents. It sort of move from a bedroom community to a more diverse community tax base. I am Public Works Chairman, and we actually found money for a stormwater rate study Now, what that will do is we will have a consultant come in and tell us how to actually enact or enable a stormwater rate to build a fund for being proactive on stormwater issues. We have a lot of stormwater issues in Lee Summit. We're surrounded by water. We're surrounded by lakes and river and things like that. And that is a big accomplishment. I know the Public Works chairmans before me had always tried to get that forward, and we finally did. And right now I think we've got an RFP for a consultant. And it's important to remember that we have to keep our infrastructure up, and that's just not stormwater and or water utilities. That's curbs, gutters, sidewalks, and everything like that. I've been a resident since 1986, and when I moved in 1986, it was a small town, small city. And it is very interesting to have seen everything happen in those since 1986. And we have grown immensely. Citizen involvement is very important. I think that it makes us a better community. There are all kinds of people out there that have really great ideas that would fit well in our boards and commissions. And really, it's minimal time invested. They would be surprised of what they can do, the good they can do in a short amount of time. One meeting a month or one meeting every quarter, and really move things forward. And then, help the council with the idea of what the community is actually needing and saying. And that's always important too.
Call to order the Wednesday, June 12, 2024 Community and Economic Development Committee meeting. Can I get a roll call, please?
Thank you, Chair. Chair Lovell,
Here.
Vice Chair Pryor, Councilmember Hodges,
Here.
Councilmember Rader,
Here.
Planning Commissioner Arth.
Here.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion for approval of the agenda.
Here. I move for the approval of the agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's moved for approval of the agenda by Councilmember Hodges, seconded by Councilmember Rader. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hodges.
Aye.
Councilmember Rader,
Aye.
Chair Lovell.
Aye. Do we have any public comments? Okay, no public comments, so we'll go right into business. Look for a motion for the approval of the May 8, 2024 Community and Economic Development Action Letter.
Chair, I move for the approval of the May 8th, 2024 Community and Economic Development Action Letter.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for the approval of the May 8, 2024 Community and Economic Development Action Letter. Can I get a vote, please?
Councilmember Rader,
Aye.
Chair Lovell,
Aye.
Member Hodges.
Aye.
All right. I guess that takes us to Section B, 2024-6114, discussion on updates to design standards by Ms. Nessif.
Good evening, Amy Nassif, Deputy Director of Development. Here tonight just to give you an update on where we are in progress working on some UDO updates for architecture and building design standards. We do, as you know, have current standards in Article 8 of our Unified Development Ordinance. And to summarize them, currently we have some minimum standards for residential developments of all type, not very robust. We also have some building materials identified for mostly for the non-residential structures, commercial and industrial, and then also have requirements for architectural submittals and four-sided architecture, and some general just overview or purpose statements of what we'd like to see and achieve. But some things that we've heard and some opportunities that we have is to review and strengthen our desired building materials and the building material requirements. Also look at considering some building design requirements addressing both the vertical and horizontal articulation. And this is all encompassing. When we're talking about architecture, we want to look at a holistic approach with how this is compatible with the built environment, the natural environment, consistency with development patterns in the area, our comprehensive plan, and then also the interplay with everything from lighting and landscaping, scaling and massing of buildings, and pedestrian orientation. We also, there's things you want to be careful of, called some things of building facadism, where, fake materials or false materials are placed on existing buildings on front facades, discourage those flat facades. And then for residential developments, sometimes you might want to look at when you have certain types of structures where the garage or other items might protrude or overpower the front elevation of a building. So little things like that we've been hearing. We also did have had some conversations, and this will be separately, looking at the approval process for the use of metal. Right now we're pretty strict in those standards, and we see oftentimes lots of requests for that conditional material to be used, and those modifications are constantly being approved. So we're looking at that also as a process improvement. And then other things is looking at what we can do for multifamily development structures and industrial large massing scale buildings. So we've been getting feedback and comments on everything, and also how we can improve just the readability and the organization of those chapters in general. That'll help the development community and helps the general public as well with the understanding of our expectations. The Ignite Comprehensive Plan does have sections on design principles. We talk a lot about in there building and massing and scaling and design for a lot of our corridors and activity centers also. And so definitely whenever we have development coming in, we just want to make sure that our UDO, which is our implementation plan, is that best tool and has the most up-to-date standards and what the city would like to see in the community at large. We have also done some recent updates in the last 6 months already. We do now require and have applicants bring in material samples with them to Planning Commission and City Council meetings to help with those discussions when there's questions that arise. We also require material schedule be included on all of our elevations, and a material schedule is going to include detailed information on the specifics in terms of the color of some building materials, the style or the type, and then even sometimes they'll include the percentage or how much on the building elevation that they're using those. And we did also clarify our requirements where we were already getting color elevations, but our code still had that was black and white, so we updated that as well. So our outcomes and our expectations, again, to align with the comprehensive plan. For developers, we want to clarify our requirements and improve some of our process efficiencies. While our goal is to strengthen and look at our architecture and building material requirements, we are not trying to price developers out or development out of Lee Summit at all. We have that in mind as well. And also then look at what the expectations and information from the general community, staff, and the city council, of course, for that future growth and development should look like. And then these are our stakeholders and our partners that we've identified that we'd be working with as well during this process. And so this summer, we're going to be working on an RFQ, or a request for qualifications, to kick things off. And then the summer, fall, be engaging and working with our consultant and consultant selection and discussion with that. And then before, solidifying and securing that consultant, of course, having those discussions with city council, and then awarding the contract and begin that whole engagement process. And that is where we are today. We do anticipate it would be about a 12-month process to get everything done. And that includes all the time with the public engagement and collaboration with you all as well. And that's pretty much it. Again, just wanted to let you know where we are and what our intent is moving forward with this, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you. Anybody here have any questions, suggestions, maybe their thoughts or ideal outcomes from this? Hodges?
So just what I would like to see come out of this is more, just, again, I know we're trying to increase our standards in general, but I would love to see more things that are brick and stone, and I would really love buried power lines. And then also like requiring classier signage. And then I know, well, I don't know if this has to do with what we're necessarily talking about, but something I've really noticed driving around lately, especially now that things are blooming, and I feel like we are doing a disservice by not taking very good care of our median areas. Like even driving along Ward, I was driving along Ward Road today, and it's just like we could do so much better. We could really stand out if we would take care of, just planting something that looks nice and just inviting and colorful or just whatever. But I've driven around in other cities and areas, and I'm just like, man, we would just stand out if we could do that. So I don't know. I would just really like to, I think we need to make some big changes and just, I don't know. I just want to make sure we're not settling for people who are coming in and say, nope, this is what we expect. And we're not trying to be harsh, not trying to make people not come do business here. But I just want to really make sure we have things that are built to last.
Sure. And I think in terms of the median, maintenance, I think that might be a little bit outside of the scope, but definitely thank you for those comments and information. That something we can look into and discuss with others. But definitely to the architecture and signage on the buildings, or when people integrate art like on the buildings, that's something as well. And how landscaping can interplay and beautify the actual site itself, and make the pedestrian feel and have a better pedestrian scale too, especially with the entranceways, with the plantings.
Thank you. Councilmember Rader?
Thank you, Chair. Okay, that was a really good presentation, and I can see where it's coming from planning, which is really good, because I think we've made good strides there with making sure that we know what the materials actually look like. That was good. I'm curious about who is your feedback coming from?
Throughout the year, well, in my long tenure here, throughout the year, I've been getting feedback from various city council members, some planning commissioners, staff as well, applicants during like pre-application meetings, and just little notes I take during our public hearings that we have on various projects and things that we see and identify. Also working with the development community at large and things that they might say and questions they might have throughout the process and as we do reviews.
So we, of course, we don't want to price our developers out of the market, but we also are Lee Summit. And I think we need to be, and I think this is good because I think we need to have a higher standard. I think we need to be a little bit more strict, a little bit more particular. We can partner with these developers. And I was also going to say that on that last slide that you had, Amy, with yes, this one. So when are you going to start, do you think, the consulting part of this? Is it going to start right away, or?
Oh, we would like to start right away. We'll be writing the RFQ and then going through our process to secure and interview and select a consultant.
And then after that, then we start getting together as
Correct.
Groups and having conversations about different things. That's good. Mm-hmm. And I'll just say this, one more comment. In our effort to step up our game, I think we need to think about in our architecture, and this is just as a comment, a side note. I was actually looking at that. I don't know if anybody saw that Ryan, I know you read the Business Journal all the time, that they put out there in the Business Journal that the direct development was going to be doing Odessa, and they had a picture, and it was parking lots. It was just nothing but parking lots, and I felt very discouraged about that. So I would say my comment would be, let's look at maybe a high-rise parking garage or something that we don't have all this concrete or asphalt, that it looks more walkable, that looks more inviting, more landscaped, that sort of thing. So that's all I have. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Arth, do you have anything you want to add? Good. Okay. Well, thank you guys for the comments. Obviously, it's something I've just thrown around in my 2 years, is kind of design and really thinking about some of these things. So I'm thankful we're actually going to take some steps to go through this process. So I think of desired outcomes from this and our ability to, I thought like just a few anecdotal stories, like a strip mall comes in, there's a CID, the architect group comes in, lays out a facade for us. It definitely looks better, but it's their kind of design, and it would be nice, especially if there were certain areas that we wanted some uniformity or some ideas of what it might look like that wouldn't price them out, but would get things in materials that we like. And that includes the vegetation and landscaping and all of those things that I think can help beautify it. And to Councilmember Hodges' point there, I know I do think we could also apply some of this stuff to our public projects. Like I remember Mr. Park was up and we were talking, I showed him a picture of a bridge, or he had a picture of a bridge, the overpass, I think it was Hartman Park. And I was like, look at that brick and the railing and just signage and things like that. I think there's things that we could do internally, that city projects, to also help beautify. But Councilmember Rader brings up an interesting point too. And I don't know that this would be able to be accomplished in the RFQ, but something, and I know everybody's heard me talk about Carmel, Indiana, and I get it's a totally different municipality, it's a totally different city, but 20 years ago when that mayor came in, they brought in a master planner, and they basically said, most cities have been developed to accommodate personal use vehicles, cars, right? And so that's why we have the parking lots that we have, the roadways that we have, and it's not that those are less desired, but like if the intent is to push things closer, make things more walkable, so like you take a Oldham Village project or something like that, like are there ways that the development's still successful, but like we can think about how that's laid out? Because one of the things to me I think we miss in a lot of these developments, and even like a Streets of West Pryor, is the walkability, right? And so if you need the parking, you need those things, can we be more intentional about how we make it feel more together and cohesive? Now, I trust me, I understand the development side too, right? So like, they'll tell you like structured parking is like, no, it doesn't work, right? And they don't want anything to do with it. Carmel said, tough luck, structured parking, but they also came back with huge incentives for these groups to accommodate some of those things. And what you end up with, the city is, it's a master plan, like it's beautiful. But I think we don't have to like do a 180, but there are ways that maybe we can look at saying, hey, you're going to come in and do this big development. Let's make it where I can go from point A to point B without playing Frogger. or, more trees, more things that help uplift that. And I think the materials will help that, and those will help make those projects look better for longer periods of time. So I'm just kind of throwing all of these things out there as we go through the RFQ and we get kind of a bigger picture from a consultant. Hopefully we can talk through some of those things too. So I'm excited about this. I appreciate you guys bringing it forward and hearing us for me a lot, and Councilmember Hodges, and now Councilmember Rader too. So I'm really excited about this and look forward to the work we're going to do, to make some positive changes and impact this community, not just, in the few years ahead, but decades, right? So these things stand the test of time. So anyway, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Anybody else have anything else you want to add? Good? Okay. That will take us to item C, incentives, target areas, and priority corridors descriptions discussion. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Councilmember Lovell. Other members of the CEDC, Joshua Johnson here, Director of Development Services. I hope this is exciting for you as the last presentation. So what I wanted to accomplish tonight, or what I'd like feedback on, I should say, is kind of the idea of bringing more elements of the comprehensive plan into the incentive policy. And then I also provided a memo to the CEDC with some proposed text changes to the incentive policy, the various areas. Now, as I wrap up this presentation, I'm going to tell you or talk to you about how I think we could take that further. Because right now, the incentive policy, it goes so far as the graphics and the look and the feel of it with these priority areas. But I think we could take that a little further, and I'll try to walk through as I do my presentation and talk to you about how I think we could take that a little further and be more intentional with how the comprehensive plan is brought into the incentive policy, and it's going to get to some of the things that you all just discussed actually. So right now in the incentive policy, we have descriptions of these areas you see on the screen before you. And I've got an example of how I propose to add some language to these, to change them, to bring them up more to where we are at today. I'm not going to read you through all these, but you can see how a lot of these are along our major corridors. And the comprehensive plan does that, but there's some areas the comprehensive plan covers that aren't within these existing areas. And when I kind of wrap up with the combined area map, I think you'll see where there is some overlap and where there is not. And I think by bringing this map into the incentive policy and really doing an overlay, it'll really convey with intention where we'd like to see some unique development and where incentives might be beneficial to the community. So this is one example of how I've edited the descriptions in the incentive policy. Keep in mind that a lot of these have boundary descriptions, and I know the map is shown, but I think there's an opportunity there as well to not just describe these in text and have a map, but kind of do a hybrid of both as we move forward. So with this area, I've provided an update there in the middle of the page, and that all has to do with that Donovan area where Mo Betta's is, and the new multifamily that's being built right now. So I updated that to reflect that development, and then Discovery Park. Now the reason I put this one in the presentation, and all of them would have been way too much text, I think, for a presentation. But this is one where, as staff, we are recommending that, hey, why don't we put Discovery Park in this area and take part of it out of the airport area? It seems to have more to do with this than the airport. That's a minor change, I'll say, but this is the kind of information I put in that memo to the CEDC. So this is the Ignite Comprehensive Plan map. These are the activity centers and the priority corridors. Now with the activity centers, the intent there was 5 big ideas in the comprehensive plan. So those are kind of higher up than our chapters or our goals. These 5 big ideas were revealed by our public surveys we did, our public engagement that we performed. And this one was to concentrate future commercial and multifamily development in 5 special activity centers, is the language used there. Now, one interesting thing you'll note, I meant to point this out back here, The downtown area in this graphic is not correct. The text is, and it's Chipman, Highway 50, and 291. So in this map, it's that, and they overlap exactly, so that's some great synergy, I guess I'll say. But I'd like to go through these kind of in order to show you where they are and provide a brief description, a high-level description, if you will, with the intent of these areas. And then I think when you see when you see these combined with our current incentive areas, I think, you'll see that there's some good opportunity here. And while I said earlier, the priority corridors, a lot of them are covered, but where you see they're not in the incentive policy, again, I think that really brings into high relief areas that we should apply maybe incentives to, or think about maybe a special planning study, things like that, as you talk about Carmel and other places. So I'm going to go through these rather quickly. So the North Activity Center, that's North PRI, right? Between Strother and Woods Chapel, this is really meant to take advantage of the open space, but do provide some mixed-use product. Not the most intense of the activity centers, but that's the location of that. And this is the kind of mapping I was going to suggest for the existing incentive areas. In there is when you have those paragraph descriptions, instead of having to flip-flop back to the map, maybe we do something more like this. This activity center to me is very interesting. You've got streets at West Pryor, Summit Woods, and Summit Fair. Now, within that, you might say, hey, didn't we kind of already accomplish something here? But to your points, there's a lot of parking out there. I think there's opportunity to get residents in here, and that's going to reinvigorate those areas. I think we would all recognize that right now there's some challenges in there. Now, Bed Bath & Beyond, that went out and immediately turned into Total Wine, so, that's good. But there are some pad sites that have been vacant for a little bit. And so I think there are some opportunities in there to change that mix of uses that will provide more concentrated residential in there, and could lead to those business areas being reinvigorated, if you will. And I also would say we don't just have to have a residential building here, a commercial building there. There could be an opportunity to do something like that large apartment building at Streets of West Pryor and have that commercial on the base. I think this is where we want to dream big, is in these activity centers. As I mentioned, downtown, that's the same area. And we have seen, this does talk about residential walkability. Now, we have some of that here, but instead of just focusing on apartment buildings, multifamily, we've mentioned this in earlier presentations with the CEDC last year, and I think some at the Planning Commission, for those of you that are coming over into the CEDC new. I think we have an opportunity this is a large area, obviously, but it doesn't have to all be apartment buildings. We could do some townhomes, kind of a mixture of residential that would help us towards that goal of adding residential to this area and providing that walkability, but not a one-size-fits-all approach. And I think that's what this activity center is really looking for here. New Longview, I don't want to just say, hey, that's New Longview and Village at View High. That's largely what it is. New Longview, it's a work in progress, and we have seen some positive development over the last couple of years. We've seen further phases of Pergola Park. We've seen the new townhomes out there, and the current master developer out there also took advantage of, there was along Fascination, there was a recently approved PDP, and it was to really increase the intensity, have the businesses on the base floor and the office and the residential above. Now, I think we just haven't quite hit maybe the right environment for that to go yet, but that was locked in due to the approval of the daycare center there on the east. So that plan is still valid. And then Village at View High, that's still valid as well. A little bit of a stall there, but it'll eventually keep going. This is the one that excites me a lot, and it's the Rock Island Activity Center. There's a lot of positive attributes to this. There's the Rock Island there at the northeast corner. I know I said I was going to high level these, and I'm kind of going through these in detail. I apologize. This is the kind of stuff I like, that I'm enthusiastic about. And then you see on the bottom there, on the southeast corner, that's right-of-way that's already present for a future Hook Road interchange. And the concept with this one largely is there's a sheer parkway planned, and it's going to start here and then curve up to Sheer Road, and I've got a graphic of that coming up. And the regional plan, I'll say for that, that's, you know, mainly within Lee Summit, but Hook Road is going to continue east, and then the concept there would be to take that all the way to Highway 7, and then this parkway would go all the way into Grandview. So it's a major east-west corridor. And this activity center is where everything happens. With all those transportation features, the walking, biking paths, the highway interchange, this activity center calls for 5 to 6 stories of mixed use, and that will require structured parking to really make this work. There's also some natural features in here that are a big advantage as well. With all that being said, I think this one would be one of the last things to probably develop down there. It's going to need a lot of more residents and things like that to create the right environment where this makes sense, I think. So this is nothing stunning, but what I wanted to point out with this graphic is obviously there's a lot of overlap, and in the downtown, those completely overlap there. But you can see now how the activity centers formed with respect to our current development. And that sheer parkway, this is that right here. To provide a little more color and context to that, right now, Public Works and Development Services staff, they're working on an alignment study to determine the best location for that road. Actually, our deputy director is working on that with Public Works and one of our planners. And I believe our anticipated completion date on that alignment study is the end of the year. I say all that, though, to point out, you know, we've got this Highway 50 incentive area, and then we've got 3rd Street here, and you can already see where some of these things have started to develop. And we've got Todd George Parkway running north-south here. And in that PRI North, that's going to be one of the required infrastructure items that will need to accomplish. My goodness, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little tongue-tied. That'll need to happen for that PRI North area to develop. I think with that, what I'd like to do is say, I provided the memo with some of the suggested language changes to the incentive policy. What I would like to do for you is develop this combined map to make it a little more graphical friendly, and then edit the incentive policy, this type of targeted areas. And what I really think the goal here is to take the comp plan and the incentive policy and make them a little more unified. Right now, we've got a sentence at the end of this targeted areas part of the incentive policy that says, hey, activity centers, comprehensive plan, here's a link. I just think being more, obvious with it, when somebody's coming in from out of town or they're reading this incentive policy from afar, I think it's a lot easier for them to see this all on top of one another. So that was my last slide. I think that was a lot of information, but happy to kind of talk this through with you guys.
Thank you. Anything in particular, like from a feedback standpoint from us, that you'd like to hear tonight from us? Like to go ahead and move forward with that, or any questions, by the way, while we're here too? Anybody have anything?
Don't give me that look. Okay, so I'm trying to grasp all this. There is a lot here. So are you saying what you want to do is basically this is your framework of what you're trying to do, and you want to expand on it, and you want to make it more simplistic, so that when people are looking at us to come here, that it's a little bit more is.
Yeah, let me elaborate on that. What I'd like to do is bring more of the activity center concept kind of front and center in this incentive policy. And what I mean by that is I'm not going to take the whole comp plan and dump it in there. I don't think that's realistic. And people will still need to eventually look at that. But what I'd like to do is say, hey, combined with this, there's activity centers in our comprehensive plan. Here's the general idea of them, and it's a place where incentives would make sense. Because as I ran through these, you know, when you said structured parking, a lot of developers will tell you that just doesn't work. Well, I mean, take Elevate 114. That worked through, you know, incentives.
It can if we're willing, right. Yeah.
And so I think the more we telegraph where we want the focus of those incentives to be, the better.
And I think you're also, if I'm hearing you right too, in those activity centers is kind of like, here's kind of how we're envisioning this going. And yes, there are some things that are going to be required of that, but this is like an incentive area, right?
Yeah, and right now, the comprehensive plan, it has some detail about the built environment we want to see in these.
Right.
But I think with further planning studies, especially that Rock Island one, we could go a lot further.
And that's what I would really get me excited, just like you get excited about this stuff, is where we are a little more intentional, giving flexibility to pivot or to adjust, but say like, this is kind of what we're envisioning here and how we see it. And by the way, yes, we know there are some things we may ask of you, but we might be willing to increase or improve the incentive program to make that make sense. Is that?
That's the kind of feedback I would love.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think I'm all for that, being able to see, instead of it just coming to us and like, here's how we envision this land, it's like, well, we've kind of showed you exactly what we think goes here and how we want it to look.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's all about creating parameters, but not locking things down so
Right.
tight that there's no freedom.
I asked on planning years ago about if we would ever incentivize housing. So would that be in the realm of, I'm not talking about apartments, I'm talking about, and maybe townhomes, maybe multifamily that way, but would that be something that we would consider in these areas? If they're slated, sorry, Ryan, if they were slated for what we have residential slated for in those areas.
So that is really a question for the council. Historically, we have not, historically we've not incentivized directly, I guess, single-family homes. That there's a lot of things with that from a tool perspective and legality perspective about being able to on certain things. Some of the tools work overall. But yeah, historically, no, we have not directly incentivized single-family homes or residential to that degree. And so that would be a conversation that the council could have.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment that I love this. I love how it gives us the proactive approach. I think we could really benefit from this mindset and just even other ways as well. But I just love the planned approach. So I love it. And I would love to go this direction and many other things as well.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement too. Yes, Commissioner Arth.
I just want to say, I think both of these presentations make the concept of having a vision, the city creating a vision for how they want everything to look. It takes it to a different level, a higher level, whether, right now we have a plan, but this really, you can visualize, you can see it more, and I think it's a great opportunity to create what we want. And then we'll draw the right people into the community.
I agree. And now, just thinking, you're talking about like that Rock Island area. I mean, I think it's just tremendous opportunity, but we could get out in front and be like, hey, we want to be able, like, how do we connect these areas to the Rock Island Trail, right? And then we can have that planning and know what needs to be done to do that and then execute it. And if it's a burden on the developer, somehow we can offset those costs. Does anybody else have anything else they want to say? Is that enough from us? Says like, I think we're all in line with your thinking here and look forward to seeing something come back to us later.
Yeah, I'll refine it and I'll bring it back for a discussion, kind of a follow-up discussion.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
That takes us into roundtable. Anyone? Oh boy. Mr. Elam?
Great first meeting.
Yeah, I nailed it. It's not over yet.
No staff roundtable.
And I will just say, I want to thank you and Mr. Johnson for meeting with me and kind of letting me know the opportunities that we have here, and look forward to sharing that with the other members on this committee of the ideas and things that we can come up with and give back to you guys and do some great work over this next year or two. And looking forward to it. So thank you guys. If there's nothing else, I will adjourn this meeting at 5:35.